I've played just about 2 days worth of Starfield since its early access release on September 1st. This is Bethesda's first original IP in over 25 years, and it follows a similar vein of all their previous titles of being a massive open world RPG, except in this title, the open world is actually an open galaxy, featuring over 1,000 planets to explore, each having realistic simulation of their respective solar system, as well as lighting, weather and atmospheres. A galaxy filled with places to explore, people to meet and secrets to uncover. This is what Bethesda has promised its players, but does any of this compare to what we've actually been given? In this video, I just wanted to give you my initial thoughts on the game so far, how much of it was marketing fluff, is the galaxy as open as we believe it to be, what's the good, the bad, and what improvements can be made in this title. These are only my initial thoughts for now, as I feel with a game this big, I don't want to give big sweeping statements before I've completed the majority of the content given to us. I will be analysing this game for our Freedom in Gaming series, so if you are interested in finding out the true barriers of freedom in Starfield, subscribe so you don't miss it. Let's start off with the good that I found in Starfield so far. Starfield presents us with what I would say is a solid, in-depth character creator. It first has you choose a preset to work from, and then hands you complete control over almost every detail you'd want, starting with your body type and skin tone, then moving on to your facial details, where again you get a lot of options here. You can choose preset modules for your eyes and ears and nose, but you can also customize further using sliders. There's also a decently sized selection of hair and facial hair to get it close to what you're looking for. But the area that I find more interesting is the final 2 sections, where you can assign yourself a background and additional traits. Your background not only allows for true character development, allowing players to adopt or impose a preferred role to their character, but it also influences your starting skill options too. For example, if you want to be a gangster, you'll gain skills in shotguns, boxing and theft. Or if you wanted to be a chef, you gain skills in cooking, melee weapons and scavenging. It seems though you aren't able to create your own set of skills for your character, so you have to choose from this list. Finally, you'll choose your traits. Now you don't have to choose any of these, but these add extra layers to your character, such as your home planet if you have parents, or a house out in the world, or if you're wanted. It's entirely up to you. All these traits add minor things to the game which make it a little more interesting throughout your entire adventure. Once you've created your character, you'll have to follow the story missions up to a certain point as a form of tutorial. However, once you've finished them, you're free to explore at your own will. Now that you've been unleashed onto the galaxy, you actually find that there's a lot of systems out there, most of them having their own plot lines and stories tied to them, with even more quests available to you the more you explore the surface or the space around them. Many people were complaining day one that the game felt empty, and to that I say they just need to explore more. I was one of these people who initially wasn't so sure on the depth of Starfield. It felt like there wasn't much to see on each planet, but the more I explored and spoke to people around me in the cities, on ships and even derelict stations, the more you find to do. I would say I've barely scratched the surface on some of these locations in terms of content. I will also say the game sort of unfolds itself the more you pursue the main plotline for a few missions. It helps you establish the main players in the galaxy and where obvious side plotlines exist. Depending on which avenues you wish to explore, I'm pretty sure that there's something for everyone here. In my 48 hours alone, I've done smuggling runs, piracy, grand heists, explored abandoned prison facilities, raided a secret United Colonies base, and engaged in full-blown space battles. Bethesda has actually widened the gamut on this entry, I would say, as it has a lot more open options for the player to work with, and it doesn't shut them down once you've completed a certain quest line, or anything like that from what I've seen. I was worried that things such as smuggling would be storyline based, however, it's clear to me that you can do it as long as you want. The more you explore in this game, the more you realise how big it is. You don't just have to land at designated locations on planets, you can put a landing spot anywhere, and the game will present you a huge open area to explore with unique planetary features and pre-generated structures. And you can do this with almost any planet in the game, minus the gas giants obviously. Every planet has resources you can mine and use in crafting, research or base building, and some planets even have their own animals and plants for you to discover and also harvest for resources. I'd also like to say that I'm fairly certain while writing this, I'm yet to come across an identical species present on more than one planet, meaning, at least in my case so far, every planet with animal life is unique, and not just pulled from a database of pre-created animals. Next, I'd like to talk about the ship mechanics. Being able to customize your own ship is brilliant. You can literally strip off all the parts and then place them however you want, in whatever colors you want, whichever configuration you want. If you want a ship specialized in trading or cargo hauling, you can do that. If you want a lighter, more agile fighter style of ship, you can do that. If you want a massive ship to house all your companions and crew together, you can do that. And just because you're changing the outside of the ship doesn't mean you're not changing the inside layout either. The interior of the ship adapts to your configuration and accurately presents you with how the ship would look given the layout you've designed. You can have a fleet of ships at your disposal, allowing you to swap them in and out when needed. In terms of flight controls, I was actually really worried about this before launch, as to my knowledge, this is the first kind of vehicle you can actually control that isn't a horse in a Bethesda game. Now, I will say the flight controls for me aren't perfect, but for a first attempt, I'd say they did a good job. They've mixed a decent control scheme between realistic and fun movement, which makes the ship combat actually quite interesting. Also, navigating your way around the solar system is pretty good too. You could, if you really wanted to, fly manually between planet to planet, but you can also just point your ship in the direction of the planet and travel there almost seamlessly. You're also free to get up from the controls and just talk to your crew if you really wanted to. Now I want to talk briefly about the leveling for the last good point. Compared to other Bethesda RPGs, Starfield has one of the most simplified leveling experiences possible. The basic premise is you gain XP through your actions, such as completing quests or killing enemies and so on. Then once you level up, you gain 1 skill point to allocate to any of your desired skills available to you. You can either choose a brand new skill or rank up an existing skill, providing you've completed the prerequisite challenges for the next rank. Every skill comes with a set of challenges the player must complete before they're able to increase that rank of the skill. For example, if you want to improve your pistol skill, you have to get a certain number of kills with pistols each rank. It's dead simple and easy to follow, but it's not perfect, which I will discuss in my next segment. The bad. The first bad point I want to look at is the performance on PC. So if you're a console player, I can't say much on this for you, but from what I've heard, console performance is fine. But when it comes to getting the game to run on my specs, which are listed here, it was a bit of a slog at first. Obviously, bear in mind I'm recording at the same time, so if you have a similar setup to me, your results may vary. In cities such as New Atlantis, I'm getting about 35 to 43 FPS on average, with my settings configured as medium, no motion blur, FSR2 enabled, and at 60% resolution scale. I found this was the sweet spot I could get where it was playable and still looked okay. For comparison, I did try without recording and it did go up by about 5 FPS or so. Outside of the cities and in open areas on habitable planets, it would be around the same. And in empty areas like space, barren moons or building interiors, I had no problem maintaining around 60 FPS. Now with all this in mind, the performance could be a lot better in my opinion. This isn't a total disaster though, this is more than playable on my specs and beyond, but I'm sure once the modding scene for this game is up and running, you'll find that there are areas that Bethesda could have improved on, which we've seen with Fallout 4, and the unnecessary performance hit it took with clutter and textures. So if you're concerned about performance, I would either wait for mods, or if you're on anything worse than the RX 5600 XT, or an Nvidia 2080, you might want to look into an upgrade beforehand to get the best experience. Next, I want to go back and look at the open landing areas you can generate for every planet. Now I know I said that in general they are good and offer a player a great opportunity to explore, but they do have some issues too. On certain planets and landing zones, I found that the area generated wasn't as fleshed out as some of the others in some circumstances. I found that while the world was populated with these pre-created structures and NPCs, some of them didn't have anything to them other than a location for the explorer to experience and combat with some spaces and maybe a little bit of loot. Which is a shame really, because I feel that almost every location in Fallout or Skyrim has a unique story or moment built into it. Maybe some background lore or a reference to a character or a piece of history. But with Starfield, a lot of the prefab locations are just that, prefabs. I think this moment stuck out to me most when I stumbled across what looked like a ship construction platform, or maybe a ship chop shop or something like that, and it was filled with spaces. These are just generic enemies like raiders or bandits in previous Bethesda games. And once I had killed them all and looted them, I then looked inside the buildings hoping to find more information about the place. but there was nothing. I feel like they put so much effort in making a location feel lived in by placing junk and items everywhere, but forgot to tie any kind of story or lore to it. It's a real shame because that's what made exploring so worth it in Bethesda games. And don't get me wrong, there are locations like that in Starfield. It's just that they went with more quantity, not quality. And I have also found identical locations replicated across multiple planets. I've found 2 facilities that were frozen and they were the exact same layout with the exact same enemies and almost the exact same loot. Another problem I have with this game at the moment is that there are way too many loading screens and menus when you're traveling from location to location. It's not like Skyrim where you can literally walk in a straight line over to your next quest. Often you'll find a quest has you open up your star map and jump to about 3 or 4 different star systems at a time, each one having a loading system for getting there, then another loading screen to land, and then another one to get out of the ship. It's like going back to Morrowind where the game had to load each chunk if you walked too far. It's a problem with the Creation Engine's cell ID system, which really limits how truly open the game can be, as it has to load each cell individually. It's the same on the surface. Exploring New Atlantis is just loading screen after loading screen, loading small chunks of the city and shop interiors. I can't wait for the crazy modder who comes along and opens the game up entirely like open cities for Skyrim. I think once we have that in place, it should make the game feel a bit more organic and lived in and not just constantly loading. Now let's talk about leveling again. I know I said I liked the leveling system they have in Starfield, however there's also a part of me that misses the smaller complexities in the Elder Scrolls and Fallout. I enjoyed leveling skills by actually using them or being able to assign points to them. There were times over the course of my leveling where it would have been great to split points into various areas rather than leveling individual skills. It would have been great to have a Skyrim style of leveling in Starfield rather than this heavily simplified version we have currently, where I could perform actions like piloting, using specific weapons, speech, or lockpicking, and improve them over time. Instead, I found myself slowly getting more agonized over which skill to invest in every level. Because I was slowly using more and more of them, and each one had their own benefits to my character. Not only that, but obviously the gap between level ups increases, so I'm playing the game not for fun at times, but just to level up and progress a single point once. The new system feels fresh and new, but at the same time it has its own flaws that makes me just prefer the older system right now. The final point I wanted to discuss is something that's present in every Bethesda title, which is the very obvious design and gameplay styles that Bethesda implements. Regardless of title, whether it's Elder Scrolls, Fallout, and now Starfield, you can almost instantly tell you're playing a Bethesda game, just from the small design choices and quirks of the Creation Engine. So many things like walking up to a building and having the NPCs fade in and out of existence when they enter and exit, or having the NPCs glitch out and hover, or physics objects just spinning around, are all quirks of Bethesda's engine and game design. And while I know it's charming in some regard, when you're trying to build this expansive and immersive universe, it really takes you out of the moment. And I think some of these things are just how the Creation Engine is designed and could be remedied by switching to a more modern and cohesive engine. I understand that this is a newer version of the engine, but it feels heavily limited and outdated when we compare it to modern titles of the same genre. So with all that said and done, there's a couple of points I'd like to note down as sort of a wish list of things to come in either updates or mods further down the line. First of all, there needs to be a mod, like there was for Skyrim, that increases the amounts of credits a vendor holds. So often you would come back with a ship and inventory full of stuff to sell, but the vendor terminals where you land have barely any money to cover it at all. Not only that, but the credits don't reset until 2 days of in-game time passes, which meant I slowly accumulated this bloat of old gear I couldn't sell for ages. It's a little fix, but it was just one of those things I kept having. Next, I want an expansion of the outpost building mechanics. Currently, the outposts you can build really only serve one purpose, and that's to harvest certain resources on the planet you establish them on. However, I found them quite lackluster. They're to only serve one purpose only. I'd love for a mod or expansion to come out similar to Sim Settlements for Fallout 4, where you can not only establish an outpost for you and your crew, but eventually build it up as a colony and have ships come to trade, people can come and settle or live in one cohesive outpost. I think outposts have a great opportunity for modding, and it would be great to see what we can do. And another idea I can think of specifically would be more crew on ships and outposts. At the moment, I'd say you have a decent amount of people on your ship, but now that I have a much larger one in game, it feels empty again. I'd love to not only have the companions you get in the story, but additional crew you can recruit in bars. Maybe a mod that increases the size of the ships you can pilot or have someone else pilot for you. Just ways to make the ship feel bigger and more powerful while also serving as a much bigger part of the game, other than just a transport method. Those are just some of the specific ideas I had, but there's more generic ones such as an unofficial patch which is being worked on right now, various performance fixes and updates from Bethesda to add more mechanics and features to the game and just make it feel a little bit more complete. So in conclusion, there's a lot to love about Starfield. It's a groundbreaking new entry into Bethesda's arsenal, and I'm pretty confident that it's destined to be another Skyrim, where people will add more content down the line and enjoy it for years to come. I'm sure there's going to be things that people discover about this game 10 years from now. It truly offers a great big open galaxy for players to explore and carve their own path within. From everything that I've seen so far, it does have areas to improve on, but it's a far cry from the total disaster that I've seen other reviewers call it again and again. These areas can be fixed down the line. I'd say not only have Bethesda given us an open galaxy to explore, but they've also provided people with the means to truly customize it and make it their own, thanks to their commitment to the modding scene. I have no doubt we're going to see some fantastic things come out down the line that expands these already interesting features and mechanics. But what do you think? Have you already played Starfield? What are your thoughts on the game so far? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.